All right, so we're going to get into one of the weirdest, most fascinating stories in all of music, backmasking. Seriously, it's a wild ride. It starts with a total accident in the studio, then blows up into this massive moral panic that ends up in court. And then, somehow, it all comes full circle and becomes this totally normal, creative thing musicians do. So yeah, let's pull back the curtain on the whole strange story of hidden messages in music. It seems like a simple enough question, right? But for decades, man, that question was loaded with all this paranoia and mystery. This is the question that had parents, sneaking into their kids' rooms, spinning their records backwards, just hunting for these secret, sinister messages they were sure were hiding in the grooves.
Okay, so here's the whole saga in a nutshell. It all kicks off in '66 with the Beatles just messing around. Then, just a few years later, that experimentation accidentally fuels the whole Paul is dead rumor. Fast forward to the '80s, and things get way more serious with the Satanic Panic targeting bands like Zeppelin, and it even leads to a huge lawsuit against Judas Priest. And then finally, we get to today, where playing stuff backwards is just another tool in the producer's toolkit.
All right, first up, hidden messages in your records. So, how did a simple studio accident kick off this huge global thing? Well, you can probably guess where this story starts. Like a lot of great rock and roll tales, it begins with the Beatles. So here's the origin story. It's 1966. John Lennon gets home late one night. He's, let's just say, tired and emotional. And he accidentally threads the tape for their new song Rain onto his machine the wrong way. The whole thing starts playing backwards, and instead of being annoyed, he thinks it sounds incredible, like totally otherworldly. He plays it for the other Beatles, they love it, and they end up sticking a little bit of reversed vocal from John right at the end of the song. And boom, just like that, backmasking is officially a thing. Okay, so this little accident, it pretty quickly spirals into one of the biggest urban legends in music history. So in 1969, a DJ on the radio gets a call from someone who claims Paul McCartney actually died in a car crash a few years back. And the proof? Oh, it was hidden in their songs, of course. The big smoking gun was this super weird track, Revolution 9. If you take the part where a voice keeps repeating number 9 and play it backwards, it sounds shockingly like Turn Me On, Dead Man. All of a sudden, fans weren't just fans anymore, they were detectives, and the studio trick was suddenly evidence of a giant conspiracy. But what started as kind of playful detective work with Beatles fans, well, it was about to take a much, much darker turn. Now we're getting into the Great Satanic Panic. This is when hidden messages went from just a fan theory to actual courtroom drama. And this right here, this was the moment it all exploded. In 1981, a Christian DJ named Michael Mills goes on the air and claims that if you play arguably the most famous rock song ever, Stairway to Heaven, backwards, you're not going to hear nonsense. No, you're going to hear a prayer to Satan. This wasn't some fan form anymore. This was a serious accusation being broadcast to thousands and thousands of worried parents. So this is what people claimed they were hearing. You've got the normal lyrics, which are, kind of mystical and poetic. But played backwards, people swore they could make out these direct messages to Satan. Of course, the band just thought the whole thing was completely ridiculous. I mean, their own sound engineer basically said, why on earth would we spend all that time and effort on something so pointless? And yeah, it's a good question. But it didn't matter if it was ridiculous. The idea was just too powerful to go away. The fear got so intense that state governments started getting involved. Seriously, people were introducing actual legislation in California and Arkansas to force record labels to slap warning stickers on albums with backmasking. They were treating it like it was some kind of public health emergency that could, and I quote, manipulate our behavior without our knowledge. And all of this craziness came to a head in a very real and very tragic court case. In 1990, after two young men were involved in a suicide pact, their families sued the heavy metal band Judas Priest. They claimed that the band's music had hidden subliminal messages that made them do it. The prosecution literally played the song backwards in the courtroom, trying to prove there was a hidden command to do it. In the end, the judge threw the case out. But, and this is a big but, he also ruled that subliminal messages are not protected by the First Amendment. Think about that. That's a pretty chilling idea to come out of all this. And this whole panic had a very, very real cost. Judas Priest had to spend almost £200,000 to defend themselves. That was pretty much all the money they had made from their last tour. It's just a crazy reminder of how a panic, fueled by the media, can have these devastating real-world impacts on actual people, on the artists.
During the trial, the band's singer, Rob Halford, kind of cut through all the madness with one simple, perfect question. What performer wants his audience dead? I mean, when you put it like that, it just exposes how completely absurd the whole thing was, right? Why would you want to hurt the people who literally pay your bills? Okay, so if the bands weren't secretly recording these messages, then what the heck was going on? Why were so many different people hearing these same exact things? Well, the next section is all about that, hearing what isn't there. It turns out the answer isn't in the grooves of the record, it's in our brains. So there's actually a scientific name for this. It's called auditory pareidolia. And you've definitely experienced this before. It's the exact same reason you see a face in a cloud or a man in the moon. Our brains are just wired to find patterns. It's what they do. So when you feed your brain a bunch of random noise, which is basically what reversed music is, it goes into overdrive trying to find something familiar, something that makes sense. It just latches on to any little sound that's even close to a word we recognize.
And check this out, because this really shows the difference. On one side, you have that supposed Led Zeppelin message. It's super garbled. You kind of have to be told what to listen for. But on the other side, you've got Pink Floyd. They decided to just have fun with it and deliberately recorded a message backwards in their song Empty Spaces. And when you hear it, it is crystal clear. There's no mistaking it. When an artist actually does it on purpose, you know it. It's a joke, not some evil message.
So here's how this little illusion actually works on a technical level. It's all about phonetics, the sounds that make up words. If you record a simple word, let's say Satan, and reverse it, you get some gibberish that sounds like Natos. Okay, now if you try to say that gibberish out loud, you might end up saying something that sounds like Metges, right? So what happens if you record yourself saying Metges and then reverse that? Well, you get something that sounds surprisingly close to the original word, Satan. It's not a secret code. It's just a cool trick of sound and how our brains process it. So after all the fear, all the panic, all the court cases, something really cool happened. Artists stopped being afraid of the whole controversy and started to embrace it, to play with it. And this is our final section, recording in reverse. This is how artists took backmasking and turned it into a tool for creativity, comedy, and even commentary. They really flipped the script. And this is where it gets awesome. Weird Al Yankovic hid the message, Satan eats cheese whiz, in one of his songs. Amazing. Prince did the ultimate flip-flop by tucking a totally clear Christian message into his super explicit song, Darling Nikki. Even Christian bands started using it, basically to troll people who were looking for the devil in their music. And then you have a band like Slayer, who just leaned all the way in and recorded exactly what everyone was scared of, a demonic-sounding chant of "Join Us" over and over again. So now all that controversy has basically vanished. Today, reversing audio is just a normal production trick. It's literally a button in pretty much every piece of music software out there. Producers use it all the time to create cool textures, to build tension before a big moment in a song. It's just another part of making music. It went from this fringe, scary thing to totally mainstream. I guarantee you've heard this 1,000 times. A perfect example is the reverse cymbal swell. You know, that whoosh sound that builds up right before a huge chorus drops in a pop song? That's it. All a producer does is take a normal cymbal crash sound, chop off the beginning, hit the reverse button, and stick it right before the beat. It's a super simple, super effective trick, and its whole existence is thanks to this completely bizarre history we've been talking about. So it all comes back to that one question, doesn't it? Have we just been finding patterns in noise this whole time? Was there ever really a hidden message in the music, or was it just our own deep-seated need to find meaning in something that's totally random? The whole crazy story of backmasking, really, it tells us a lot more about ourselves, about our fears and anxieties, than it ever did about the music. It's a pretty powerful reminder that sometimes what we hear is just a reflection of what we're already hoping or fearing to find.